The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Ads with Simon Pound from simonpound.com.
Ads indeed with Simon Pound, simonpound.com. Joining us this morning via live Skype video feed. Hello to you, Simon.
Kia ora, how are you, sir?
Kia ora, very, very good. Today we're talking about branded content, Simon.
Yes, branded content today. This is the idea that's really picking up a lot of currency around the world at the moment, of brands making things that are interesting for their audience rather than just doing what's the traditional interruption-based marketing. And interruption-based marketing is like, if you think about the concept, the idea of advertising in the middle of a television show on TV, interrupting something people love in order to blare an unsolicited message at them is a very unusual thing.
Yeah.
And it makes much more sense to actually spend the money that it might have taken to make an ad and play that ad and use it instead to create something that that audience will seek out, choose to share and engage with and enjoy. And so this is not necessarily a tremendously new thing. The idea of soap opera comes from many, many years ago on the radio when soaps like Palmolive would sponsor radio plays. And so that is some of the first branded content. But we're getting back to that now as the means of production of television and video content is now getting cheap enough, and the means of dissemination of broadcasting it via the internet is now getting democratized enough and available to enough people that lots of companies and people can just start making cool stuff. And so this has kind of been, we talked about a little bit about this a while ago, but now there's some really great examples starting to come through. And this kind of web-episodic, internet-only or branded content does seem to just be really cracking on. And there's a great example that I'd like to talk about and play a bit from, which is Palladium Boots. Now, Palladium Boots is a shoe company who make boots that were popular in the 90s. They've kind of gone off the boil a little bit. But they have made a series of amazing documentary explorations of cities where their kind of market is likely to be. And so one that's just around at the moment is about London Pirate Radio, British Pirate Radio. And so they get a guy who's a real culturally credible force. He's actually a writer and an ex-grime DJ who played in these pirate radio stations. And he goes around, meets the music makers, meets these people, goes to the top of tower blocks and puts antennas on the top of them. He goes to the sea forts outside the territorial waters of the UK, these amazing sea forts where the first pirate radio was, and meets some of the first people involved. And the content is just amazing, really fascinating, beautiful production values, tremendously well done. And the only brand involvement is that it's presented by Palladium Boots, and the guy wears Palladium Boots and he's exploring. Yeah. So it sticks to the thing. And there are a couple of shots of the shoes, but not like on purpose shots that stick out like the proverbial, but they really fit, you know, like he's walking upstairs and you see them. It's not a big deal. And they're not dishonest about it. They're very honest that it is a Palladium Boots production. So anyway, they're creating this really cool content that wouldn't be out of place on VBS, the Vice associated television station, and it wouldn't be out of place on the best television you've ever seen. So it's just a really cool example of it. You got to wonder
though if it actually translates into sales. You know, will people go out and buy Palladium Boots because they've seen this cool content?
Well, that's always been the question when it comes to doing something different than a normal ad. But if what you're trying to do is create a community and a real feeling of attachment to your brand, to me it makes much more sense to do something like this. Give people something that's actually worthwhile and good, good to watch, good to see, entertaining, that you'd like to tell people about, than to, if I was watching a show that I loved on television, and then they stopped at 5 minutes in and then yelled at me with an ad going, Palladium Boots, Palladium Boots, Palladium Boots, and then allowed me to go back to watching my TV show.
Yeah, good point.
So I think that it is much more, if you look at it in a rational kind of what's likely to make you like something, giving them something useful rather than just yelling at them is definitely more likely. And that's kind of the whole reason that I got interested in advertising, is that with all of these advertisers to have this money to spend, there's these niche channels that if you can provide something cool for a small group, you don't have to make something that more than half the country is going to like in order to get on telly. So you don't have to have something with Mark Ellison celebrities getting voted off and people with fake breasts in order to make television.
That's refreshing to know as well. Yeah.
So a good example of this in the local context would be a man named David McGregor. We talked to him a bit about this stuff on the Ed Show last week, and he's actually started this thing called Brand View, which is a community for people who are thinking these thoughts and caring about these things. And it's a really cool thing to see getting off the ground. He's kind of starting it off by putting a whole lot of links to international examples of where this is working. He notes some Nike collaborations. He notes a really wonderful collaboration where a blind man paints a Volvo, and then there's a series of other things. He's just kind of putting in some context and seeing if he can get people talking about this new world of branded content, which is a very cool thing to see. So that's Brand View, which is on the Ning network. I think David McGregor is a person that you have to talk to get into that. He is the guy that co-founded Ideologue magazine, and he is also, he's an advertising veteran. He's also done things like he started a company that came up with the family health diary concept. Yeah. So that's an example of branded content that isn't quite in this line, but was certainly the forebear to it.
Great.
Yes, and another example, a nice visual example of this is Sony has a new camera out, and so they co-opted a director to do a kind of around-the-world thing, and he went and he shot all these photos in a sequence, popping in it's Le Tour du Monde on 80 seconds, so around the world in 80 seconds. So he tours the world and goes in and out of cars and houses as his transportation mechanism to get into different cities and places. And it's just beautiful shots and a really nice, simple idea, and just quite a cool thing. And so rather than just having an ad, they show what the product does, and it takes great photos, and they tell a really interesting story and show you things you wouldn't have seen.
It's this sort of advertising and the showing the product like this actually makes me want to go and use the product in a similar way. I'd really love to do this. Kind of, what are they? Is it stop animation or whatever they call it, where you take photos every few steps.
Yeah, it's a kind of time lapse or. Yeah. Yes, as you travel.
I was there last year. They've just shown a shot of one of the shrines in central Tokyo.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. So this could have made a great ad as well, just for normal television channels. But it's the kind of thing that really spurs discussion and gets people sharing it online. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And another thing that's quite different to this for this week is the Chip Shop Awards, which is something that they found at thechipshopawards.com. And they're an award for creatives to get noticed, but they're not actually for real work. So the idea behind them is that a lot of the time, if you're an ad creative, the ideas you come up with are either going to be too out there or too over the top or too unusual, or the client's not brave enough to run them. And they just never get a chance to get made. And so this is an awards for people to send in stuff that they think would be great for a brand, but that never actually necessarily got made for that brand. It started out by a couple of guys who wanted to get noticed as advertising creatives, and so they just started making ads for places and running them in order to get picked up, and they ended up winning awards, and now they are very successful creatives. So they run this awards to help people perhaps leapfrog the process. And if you win in the Chip Shop Awards, it's judged by leading creative directors, and it may turn out to get you a great job. So what it is it's just an exercise in pure kind of clever creativity, often just doing jokes and things that are a little bit on the nose. They're all basically visual representations. So they take well-known symbols and subvert them a little bit, and they have a lot of visual puns that don't travel tremendously well onto a radio show. But one section that is very explainable is they have a special feature for the art of the window poster, which is a very established thing in Britain especially, where in shop windows there'll be little posters wanting to talk to people. And one of their favourites, one of my favourites up there at the moment, is one that says, "Wanted psychic, call me." So it's quite a nice idea in that shop marketing.
Yeah. Simon Pound for the ad feature. Thanks so much for chatting to us. SimonPound.com for a whole lot more as well. Thanks very much.
Cheerio, good sir.